Hi, how do you handle your career if you're a chess player and you have the potential to be the best player in the world? Or if your passion is comparative literature and your parents are saying there is no way you can make a living out of that if you pick that as a career path? Following or not following your dreams is the question we are going to examine today in this episode of Careers Cast. Stay tuned. This is Careers Cast, a podcast for students and early career professionals who want to develop a successful and meaningful long term career in technology. I'm your host, Marcio Saito. Hello. In the last few years, I have spent a lot of time talking to early career professionals about their career plans. And one question comes up more often than I would have expected. And the question is, should I follow my dream? And that's a very difficult question to handle in my role, trying to provide useful advice, because the obvious answer is yes, you should always follow your dream. But you need a reality check. And let me put more context behind that question, because it happens in two, or at least in my experience, it happens in two different scenarios, right? One scenario is uh, I'm young, and since for a long time I have had this dream of pursuing a career in this specific space. And people around me, my parents, my friends, even myself, right? Well, I start second guessing and asking the question, because everyone is telling me that there is no money there, right? So there is no enough demand, and if I decide to work in that space, it's going to be very hard for me to find a job and to make a living. My assumption is that most of us need to make money to live, and work is a way of doing that. And and the challenge there is that it's not very easy to evaluate, right, whether you can make money in that space or not. So people ask, should I follow my dream? That's one scenario. The other scenario is, I have a special talent in the sports, or I have special talent in arts, and I am considering taking, pursuing a professional career in that space. Maybe I want to be a NBA basketball player, or maybe I want to be an actor in a Hollywood movie and things like that. And I think the challenge in those, in the arts and sports, is that because there are only a small number of people who can make potential lot of money, but if you don't hit that level of performance, right? If you cannot join the NBA because you got injured, because you're not good enough, right? Or if you never get your role in a Hollywood movie, in those careers, right, it tends to be very difficult for you to make a living if you don't get the right opportunities. And people ask, right? Everyone is saying I should not try to be an NBA player. Should I follow my dream? And that's a difficult question. So before I try to give you an approach to face that dilemma, let me say something that I think is also relevant, right? And that's gonna help us in the reality check of our dreams. Every time you listen to a successful person, whoever it is, right, and whatever definition of success you have, they are going to tell a story that talks about their difficult beginnings, all the challenges, how it was going to be impossible for them to be successful. But then they worked really hard, they had faith in their talent, they made the right choices, they took the opportunities, and they made it, right? They are successful. Those stories are all positive, right? We need that inspiration. We need to hear those stories, so that despite all the challenges, right, we believe we can reach the same or more level of success than that person. So inspiration is very important to all of us. But those stories also have a danger, which is of giving us an unrealistic perception of the odds, right? Because every successful person, uh, yes, they have merit. I'm not gonna take any merit from them. But what they don't realize sometimes, and what they never say, is that luck, random luck, was a major factor in their success, right? Uh, and nobody says, right, I am here because I'm lucky, because There are 1,000 people who are as talented as me when I was a child, and they're in the same place, and they all want to play in the NBA, and they didn't make it, right? I made it because I had merit, yes, because I worked hard, but I was also lucky to get there, right? Because things happen, and I had the opportunity to be there. So I'm not saying anyone is trying to mislead you, but success stories, they have this survival bias. And if your inspiration, right, is and your dream is based on those inspiration those by those stories, you need to do a reality check, because if you're playing against the odds, luck becomes a more important factor than merit. And luck is something you don't always control, right? So I think that's important as we talk about the odds and reality check. So, how do you face that dilemma? Should I follow my dreams? I think in the first case, right, of the money part, uh, nobody really knows how the job market is going to evolve in the next 20 years. Technology is changing everything much faster than in the past. And society is evolving very fast, much faster than in the past. And your parents, your coaches, me, we don't know how the world is going to be 20 years from now when you're going to be in the job market trying to build a career, right? And let me tell you one more story. When I went to college, I grew up in Brazil in a poor part of, uh, the developing, big city in a developing world. And I went up, against the odds, I ended up going to college, University of São Paulo. I went to engineering school. I selected electrical engineering. I specialize in computers, and those choices, right, were made in 1990s, where there was no email, there was no computers, I had never seen a PC in my life, there was no cell phones, there was nothing, and there was no indication visible to me that electrical engineering or computers were going to be important in the future, right? So if you ask someone in the early 90s, right, I'm thinking about designing computers, they're going to say, what are computers? Why are you going to do that, right? There is no money there. There is no jobs there. Why are you going to do that, right? And so what happened is I had a lot of luck, right? I made unpromising decisions, and I was lucky that computers became important, right? And then I graduated. I went to work with um, operating systems, which is a very obscure niche in computer science. And I didn't know then that in 10, 20 years later, I would have the opportunity to be one of the Linux kernel developers, right? Because I was one of the few people who knew how to write operating system code. And then after that, I went into networking, and I moved to California, and I arrived here when the internet boom was just starting, and I had the opportunity to help, build some of the foundations of what became the internet. And all my choices, right, all those choices, they are made at a time where it was impossible for me to know that there was going to be demand and there would be opportunities to make money, to have a career. And the fact is, I'm here, right? And what I'm telling you is that the same way you don't know if your choices are gonna create opportunities to make money, I had no way to know that, right? And I'm here. And yes, there was some luck involved. But my point is, in a scenario where nobody knows what the future is, and I'm telling that's the real scenario, right? Any choice is a equally good choice. And if you follow your interests, if you follow your passions, and you dedicated more energy because of that, and you are better at what you do because of that, you're going to find opportunities, and the opportunities are going to find you. So do a reality check that we are going to talk next, but follow your dreams, right? If you are in the situation of the high stakes professional choices, uh, it's more difficult because the odds there are much smaller. And when the odds are smaller, the probability is much smaller. It's very difficult to make objective assessment, right? What are the odds I hit the NBA? What are the odds I become, one of the 20 best players, chess players in the world, right? It's very hard to evaluate that probability. I think we are talking about plausibility, right? Is it a plausible goal for me to become an NBA player? Is it a plausible goal for me to win the Academy Awards and becoming an actor and winning the Academy Awards, right? It is plausible. Do I have enough talent, right? Do I have the right connections and the right context to get there? And again, if it is plausible, right? You are never gonna be able to measure probability because they are gonna be small. So you're gonna be playing against the odds and you're gonna need some luck. But if it is plausible, I say go for it, right? Because you're gonna regret if you don't. So how do you do that reality check, right? Um, I think it is very hard to do through introspection because you're young, you don't have the visibility, right, to be able to assess it objectively, right? Of course, you hope you can do, but it's very difficult for you to evaluate objectively. So I think in both cases, the action item I suggest is to bring someone else, right? Someone who has life experience, right? Who has professional experience and can help you and the people around you, the people who want you to be happy and successful, to figure that out, right? And it's a bit different in each case. So I think if you are planning to go into a space and people are saying there is no money there, of course there is money there, right? There are people working that space and they are making money somehow. So find them, talk to them, and bring them and say, hey, I am planning to pursue a career in your space. Tell me about the challenges. Tell me, everyone is telling me there is no opportunity there, there is no money there. Should I go? And what you're going to find is that successful people, they are more than happy to share their experiences and their insight, right? They want to share that with you. So if you approach anyone who is successful or who is making money, whatever, in that space where you're planning to pursue, they are going to be more than happy to come and tell you the good and the bad, the challenges and the good things about it. And then you can make, you can gain perspective. Your parents or whoever is questioning your decision can gain perspective. And again, if you do that well, opportunities are going to find you. In the other case, right, of the high stakes career choices, the difference is I think it's very difficult for someone who is in that environment to have an objective assessment, right? Your coaches are invested in your career as a basketball player, right? Your parents have been taking you to basketball games for the last 15 years and they're invested in that, right? And it's very hard for them to be objective, right? So I think in that case, my advice is the same. Bring someone with life experience, someone who is trusted by you and by the important stakeholders in your life. But bring someone that's an outsider, right? And ask that person to talk to your coach, your parents, yourself, basketball players, understand how the career of basketball players go, and and ask them to help you to develop a perspective, right, on whether that choice is plausible or not. And if it is plausible, follow your dreams. And the final message from me is uh, life is not guaranteed, life is not fair. Uh, Random luck is a factor in anyone who is successful. So make your choices. Whatever your choice is, do your best. And if you hit a wall, there is always the opportunity for you to change directions, to restart, to go do something else, right? It's never the end of the world. And yes, if you hit a wall, it's going to be a setback. You're going to learn, but it's going to, you know, pull you back for a few years, a few months, whatever it is, a few $1,000s, right? But you can always restart. You can always use what you learned, right, and change direction and go in the right direction this time. And that's how life is. And nobody can tell the future. And in the world we live today, past experience cannot be projected into the future, which makes choice more difficult, decisions more difficult, but at the same time removes some of the responsibility because nobody can tell you that if you do software development and you learn how to develop operating system code, you're going to have a lot of opportunity because that's not true anymore. Follow your dreams. Subscribe to this channel, watch the next episode, and I see you there. Bye.